Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Aqibatun lil mustaqim. Wa la udwana illa ala dalimin. Wa salatu salam ala rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa alihi wa sahbihi wa ajma'in. Ataylahum tahayati wa salami haran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Halim salam bikum ikwanina wa uqwatina fi din. Well, my dear brothers and sisters, thank you for showing up, and those who show up in the future, and to continue the lesson on the tafsir of Surah Mutahina, a beautiful surah that encompasses three main aspects, but dealing with the aspect of the Muslim woman and the non-believing woman as well. Also the aspect of our relationships with the non-Muslims, in particular our Christian and our Hebrew brothers and sisters, and how we are to deal with them. And I covered last week the first verse where Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has made it clear that he does not want us to have relationships or to take as friends those who fight us, who drive us from our homes, those who legislate against us, those who talk against us in an open forum, those who try to push Islamic phobia through the land and so forth and so on. We're not to take those. But he gave us more guidance in the verse 8 where Subhanahu wa Ta'ala says he does not forbid us to deal kindly with our brothers and sisters, the Christians and Jews and Hebrews, those who do not fight us, and we can deal justly with them. And so it goes to show you again, it proves the point that the brothers and sisters in Islam are not warmongers. That if you follow the Quranic law, the Sharia Islamiyah, you will see that Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, in his wisdom and his guidance, gives us everything that we need. And this is why the Quran is a mercy to mankind. And so this is a good guide. So now the confusion of like myself, like I always talk about where I was raised in Compton, California, and I have brothers and sisters who are Christians, and I've been knowing them now, 60 years. And it's not many of us left now, to be honest. But they never have fought me in any way, so I'm hoping that we did get something out of that to show that those brothers and sisters I know, they're in Compton, I can deal justly and kindly with them, which I do. And then you're okay. You're not violating any of the Sharia in that regard. Now, again, we have to understand something. That doesn't mean that I can go and date or among the Christians and Jews or even Muslims, or it doesn't mean I can go now and go to a party with them where pork, wine, and so forth is served. No, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about have kindly relationship with them. This is what Subhanahu wa Ta'ala was talking about here. And then we moved on further, and Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, he made it clear in verse 9 that those who fight us, who drive us out, and that we don't turn to them in any way for friendships. And that's important. Again, we have to clarify that is not hard. We know who's fighting Muslims. We know who the biggest killer of Muslims. We know who has been legislating since 9/11 against Muslims. We know that the disbelieving Tubac governments have been very harsh, rolling back the Muslims in their land, going especially after the Muslim woman, trying to make her remove her hijab. These kind of people like this, we stay away from them. We don't have any barter with them. We don't deal with them, period. And unless we are forced to. But when we do deal with them, we deal with them sternly and whatnot. So then we went on to number 10, which I'm going to cover this again because this is important, my brothers and sisters, that we have understanding about this. Because why? I'm going to bring up some issues that many of you probably don't think about, or you think about it, but you kind of move it on. Assalamu alaikum, my dear sister Amina, and assalamu alaikum, my dear brother Hashim. I'll read this verse again because it's very important that we understand something. And again, the wisdom of Subhanahu wa Ta'ala and the Muslims and our Prophet and the guidance that he gave us. And this is important because it gives us a guide. Because you see around us today, we have many women refugees, even coming to Muslim lands, other Muslim leaving from many different places who are under fire. There's war, there's famine, there's rebellion, and so forth and so on. And they fear for their lives. So what has happened, these believing women or refugees, they begin to come to Muslim lands. They come to United States and they go to live among the Muslims. And now, what is the guidance for the Muslims? Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is giving us guidance. He says here, this is verse 10. Again, Surah 60, Mumtahina, and verse 10, O ye believe, when there came to you believing women refugees, examine them. Remember, I went over that last week. Not examine them in the Western context, dating and so forth, and sexual activity. No, we're not talking about that. It's forbidden in Islam. What we're talking about here is talking about their faith. Subhanahu wa Ta'ala says, Allah knows their faith. If you ascertain that they are believers, then send them not back to unbelievers. Remember, I talked about this last week again. We have no right once our sisters who Afghans, Pakistanis, Bangladeshi, there's others who are suffering in war-torn lands. They come from Burkina Faso, or they come from Chad, or they come from Mali, or some place like this. We have the right to examine them. I'm talking about our brothers who want to marry with them. And again, Subhanahu wa Ta'ala says, send them not to unbelievers. Then he says, they are not lawful wives for unbelievers. This is an important aspect because now we have Muslimas, even in Muslim lands, are leaving so they can go marry disbelievers. This is very, very, very interesting. And this is happening a lot now, where we have Muslim women taking non-Muslim men as husbands. This is forbidden. It is an invalid marriage according to Islam. The children that they have from it are regarded basically in the English vernacular as bastards. They are not recognized. So Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is told that. He said they are not lawful wives for the unbelievers, nor are the believers lawful husbands for them. So vice versa again. He may be handsome, he may be this and that, but you cannot take him because he's not a Muslim. Now, here we get to the part where some may have confusion on this, but again, it shows the Muslims and their wisdom and their justice, even with non-believers. Subhanahu wa Ta'ala says, but pay the unbelievers what they have spent, and there will be no blame on you if you marry them on payment of their dowry to them. Now, what are we talking about this? During the time of as Islam was shaping up, there was a treaty. And then that treaty was very important. And the Quraysh and other Arab tribes violated this treaty that they had, where you're supposed to turn back certain individuals over to them in certain circumstances. What was happening, we had women leaving the Quraysh and Mecca and other Arab tribes. They were unbelievers and coming to Medina to marry with Muslim men. Subhanahu wa Ta'ala in his guidance told us, okay, yes, you can do this, but you pay the unbelievers what they have spent. This is justice. What I mean by this and what is happening here, Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is giving us the guidance. He's saying, I'll give you an example. Let's look at it in modern times today. Say we have a sister in Baltimore, Maryland. She's a Christian. Her husband is Christian. She somehow or another meets me somehow or another, with all the modern technology. Say she comes to to Africa, say to Morocco here for a couple of weeks in an Islamic seminar. I'm just saying, for instance, her and another lady, she comes to meet me. She decides this is time she's going to leave her husband. And she's going to come here to Morocco and she wants to marry with me. And she wants to become a Muslimah. She becomes a Muslimah, then I can marry with her. Whatever that brother spent on dowry, and translation that because the Americans don't pay dowry, but they do pay things like, the wedding cost and so forth and so on. The Muslim man, me, I must pay this brother back in Baltimore, Maryland, what he spent on his wife, even if it was 5 years ago. Meaning that if he spent $3,000 on the wedding, her dress, miscellaneous things, her ring, and so forth and so on, I must pay this money back. This is the rules. This is justice, my brothers and sisters. This is justice. Again, we'll look at it in another context. We have sisters, and this is happening, believe it or not, from China. I saw this in Sudan. They are leaving, and the Chinese government began to clamp down. The Chinese women who are, they are Buddhists, okay, and some believe in Taoism, they begin to leave China, come into Sudan, and come Muslims, and they were married in China. If we lived in the Islamic system, which none of us are hardly doing anymore, we don't have this system operating, the brothers who married these girls from China should have went to their husbands and said, how much was what did you pay on dowry? What was your wedding like? Okay, and he says, look, I paid for a wedding 2 years ago with my wife, I paid $2,000. I'm supposed to pay him back. This is what Subhanahu was talking about. This is justice, my brothers and sisters. This is the goal to show you this is justice. Then he goes on to warn us. He says, but hold not to guardship of unbelieving women. Here's the contention that many brothers and sisters have. I hear this all the time. This became an issue with the infamous Mujahideen group. We don't need to mention the name that took over Syria, part of Syria and Iraq. Remember, they were finally defeated, but we know they're back into action now. There was a lot of things going on where they were coming to the cities and they were taking women and they were putting them in the houses and so forth. And there was reports about them having sexual relations with these women who they had captured their towns, and now the women were free in the city and so forth. And again, I explained to you. Let me give a shout out here, and I'll get back to some of my friends. Amina, how you doing, my dear sister? And my dear brother, also Saeed, thank you very much, my brother, just for showing up. Well, I lost my train of thought. I'm an old man now. I'm starting to be old. Lost my train of thought here. The Mujahideen group were taking even some believing women, but they were heretics in Islam, and they were taking Christian women. They were taking some Shia women, and they were taking, I forgot this, Druze and so forth, the different types of women they were taking. Islamic rule says that if you go in battle, the women who are in that city are not to stay there and be left to fend for themselves. They cannot. So the Muslims are supposed to put them in the community, and they work as house servants, and there's a lot of rules. I won't get into that. But we cannot take the women who are non-believers and take them in unless it's a time of war. But for the disbelieving women to leave, to come into the land and to walk around the place, it doesn't work. Because we know that what happens, their morals are quite different than that of our Muslim sisters. And a lot of times they will cause a fitna. And so when this ruling came down, even Omar had some women who were unbelievers. He had to divorce them because when Subhanahu put this down, then the law was clear. We cannot be guardianship of these women. In time of war, it's different. In time of war, we go and we conquer and say out of the war booty and so forth that we get from this, and say there's 2 ladies and they may have to come under my protection because now they can't fend for themselves in the cities anymore. So we take them and put them under our system. I'm responsible for clothing them, feeding them, and so forth and so on. And if they agree to even have relations with me, this is the difference. Even if they have relations with me those children are recognized. This is, again, the wisdom of Islam. And subhanahu wa ta'ala and our Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, I have children from these women, and those children are recognized. We have many of this in history. Again, there's no forcible situation here. I can't go to this disbelieving woman who's now a handmaiden in my house, who cleans, who does this and that, and go to her and say, look, you're going to have to do this, I'm going to throw you out. We cannot do that. We cannot do this. If she agrees to submit to me, then and her children come from this, they're recognized. So this is the difference. I want that understood, because there's a lot of contention. I hear a lot of people talk about, well, look what they did over here in Syria. Look what they did in Iraq. Those are different circumstances. Time of war, we never leave women to fend for themselves. We take them and put them under protection of the Islamic State. This is our rules under the Sharia. But of course, now we don't have the Sharia per se, so this is why there's so much confusion. Now, ask for what ye have spent on their dowries, and let the unbelievers ask for what they have spent on dowries. Such is the command of Allah. He judges between you with justice between you, and Allah is wise and all-knowing. So, again, my brothers and sisters, this is an interesting part of the aspect of our Sharia. We have disbelieving women who leave Baltimore, who leave Atlanta, Georgia, who leave Texas or Compton, California, or LA, and they come to Muslim lands. They come to Gambia, and say our brother Saeed, who's here now, say my brother Saeed sees the sister from who left Atlanta, Georgia. She's unbeliever, but she now comes to Islam. But she left her husband there in Atlanta, Georgia. She left him, and she come down to Muslim lands because she wanted to become a Muslimah. She knows she cannot be married to her husband no more. He is not going to become a Muslim. Saeed agrees to marry with her. She takes a shahadatain. Now Saeed goes to marry with her. Saeed now must contact her ex-husband, who is a Christian, must contact him and ask what he was spent on dowry or expenses, wedding expenses, not everyday expenses over the years. If he bought her a car, no. But if part of the wedding gift to his wife was a car, they're going to have to, then he's going to have to figure out how he's going to pay, but he's supposed to pay equivalent to this. So if he paid $5,000 US, Saeed has got to pay that $5,000 if he can afford it. But Allah says he must do this. This is the justice that we have. So this, I wanted to make sure we have this and we understood that this justice in this. We have disbelieving women who want to leave the lands of disbelief. They want to come to Morocco. They want to come to Tunis. They want to come to Algeria. They want to come to Mauritania. They want to come to Gambia. They want to come to Senegal. And they left their husbands and now they want to marry. This is the way it's supposed to run. Now, let's go to number 11 here. Again, this is Surah 60 and number 11. This becomes interesting. I'll tell you something about this here in history and about what the scholars said. Number 11, subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if any of your wives desert you to the unbelievers, and ye have ascension by coming over a woman from the other side, then pay to those whose wives have deserted the equivalent of what they have spent on their dowry, and fear Allah and whom you believe. Now, this we know that's not going to happen. We know this. But we do have this. You heard me mention at the beginning of the show. We have many sisters now leaving. And they're going because they want the worldly life. They want to live good. They want to live in the land of the Tubab. They want to live around the Tubab's, his environment. They want to have the worldly life, good, a disbelieving husband where he'll buy her cars and all the trappings of the worldly life. We have sisters doing this. Accordingly, what's supposed to be happening here is twofold. One, that sister who did this, she's supposed to pay her dowry back to her husband. But we know this is not going to happen. But this is what is supposed to happen. She's supposed to pay this back. Because she has now deserted her husband. She goes to live among the disbelievers. Now, there's other rulings. I won't get into that because that's part of the Sharia. Are they now disbelievers because they decide to go and live among the unbelievers? We know for a fact As I said before, this is proven. Every school of thought, we have the 4 school of thoughts, everyone has said the same thing. If the sister who is a Muslimah decides to leave Morocco or Gambia, and she goes to LA, California, and she marries a disbeliever, it's an invalid marriage according to the Sharia, and her children are not recognized under Islamic law. That's just the bottom line. It's over. Cannot be. So we saw that part here, and now we're covering every aspect to help our sisters and help the brothers understand our relationship with our sisters in circumstances like this, because we don't talk much about this, but it's happening a lot. It's happening a lot. We have a lot of movement going around in the world today, but we have a lot of Muslims leaving Muslim lands, going into the lands of disbelievers, and things happen. They're starting to have things happen where they go to marry and so forth and so on. This is a tragic situation and whatnot. And so again, my brothers and sisters, just be mindful of this. And this is good education for all of us, because it can happen. As we see our sisters leaving the Western states today in particular, and they're leaving to come to Gambia, they're leaving to come to Morocco, they're leaving to come to Senegal and Mauritania and places like the Muslim states. It's wise for you to understand your role in this, and so forth and so on. If this sister left, now here's a different circumstance. Now I'm not talking this case here, where I know these cases as well. Say a sister's there in Baltimore, Maryland. She divorced her husband already. They divorced. Now she decides, hey, you know what? I can't live here in America no more. I want to come and live in Gambia. And she meets Saeed. He's not required to have to go back to her ex-husband. No. But if she left Baltimore, Maryland, still married to him, and she comes to Gambia and Saeed meets her and she becomes Muslimah, and Saeed and he marries with her, now he has to pay. This is the rules. But if she divorces her husband first in a court of law, according to their laws, and they're divorced, and she decides now, here's another thing too, I must warn you on this. We have an iddah period where we have 3 months and some days. In these 3 months that she's not supposed to marry, the Sharia kicks in. Meaning, if our dear sister left Baltimore, Maryland in January, she won't be eligible for Saeed to marry actually until 3 months, to be February, March, until April. Then Saeed is eligible to marry her. This is a law that we have. So we have to understand that as well. That sister leaves in January, she leaves Baltimore, Maryland, she comes to Gambia. She cannot marry at this time with Saeed until after the iddah period is finished, because she falls under the Sharia now, because she's become a Muslim woman. She falls under the Sharia, and she has a 3-month period that she has to, we have to stay back. After that, then Saeed is eligible to marry with her. So again, my brothers and sisters, this is an important factor. I want to see here, I see a brother Hashim, he has a comment here, Sunnah, Allah and Hanafi, and no Sunnah in the Quran, nowhere in the Quran. You know, my dear brother, I don't understand what you said here in the English language. If you can write this into Arabic, because I know you speak and write Arabic. You write this so that way I can understand it, because what you say here, I cannot comprehend what you're saying. Okay, let's move on here. Now we get into the part that is very interesting. Again, when we talk about bay'ah, and I'm just going to cover some of this because it's pertinent. It's for education, for your Islamic education, but we don't have this situation to take place anymore, because what is happening down in Muslim states is not according to the Sharia as far as bay'ah. It's just not. It's mutated, and it's innovative, and so forth and so on. And it's very difficult for the strong Muslim to abide by the innovations of the bid'ah. But Subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and this is verse 10 again, Surah 60, verse 12. O Prophet, when believing women come to thee, take the oath of fidelity to thee, that they will not associate and worship any other thing, whatever, with Allah, that they will not steal, that they will not commit adultery or fornication, that they will not kill their children, that they will not utter slander, intentionally forging falsehood, that they will not disobey thee in any just matter, then do thou receive fealty and pray to Allah for the forgiveness. Now, if anyone understands the bay'ah, that's the pledge. When the brother comes to make his bay'ah to the imam of the country, there are some things that he has to say. I won't get deep into that, but the bay'ah is signified by the words and by the handshake. There's other circumstances under the Sharia when people can give their bay'ah through letters because they are distanced far away. And in today's time, nobody gets close to the rulers anywhere anymore. Even in Muslim lands, it's very, very, very difficult to get close to the imam of the country. You just cannot. So to give bay'ah is you give it by verbally and that's it. But I won't get into those specifics about the bay'ah. But the bay'ah that's given by the man is different than the bay'ah given by the woman as specified here. Because at this time, believe it or not, we have the same problems today. I was I was looking at YouTube, all of these cases that have transpired where women have accused men of impregnating them. That child is grown now. Some DNA test is taken. He found out that that child is not his. And she knew that the child was not this man's. And that man paid child support all those years. They were doing that 1400 years ago too. They didn't have DNA. But women would look at the man who could best provide. And they'll go and have relations and then turn around and say, I think I'm going to blame Yahya for making me pregnant, when she knew that it was the man over here that actually made her pregnant. But she would say, I'm going to go with Yahya because he's the best provider. You cannot do this. This is slander. This is what we're talking about here. You cannot. And intentionally forging falsehood. This is what that is. We have this prevalent today as it was 14 years ago. Women turn back around and make child support. Men pay child support for all these years. Some of these men, even after 14 years that they've had this child, and you think about it, they've held this child, they've loved this child, they have changed their diapers, they have fed their daughter and their son, they have clothed them, all the things that a parent does for his child. And then he takes a DNA test, where he takes a blood test and he finds out that the daughter that he has loved dearly is not his. And what this causes, the fitna from it. The Prophet ﷺ said this about the women. And there's a lot of other things too that's involved in this. And so the pledge from the woman is far more encompassing than that of the man. It doesn't mean that the man is free to fornicate. No. Or he's free to slander. No, he's not. Because if you know the Quran, Subhanahu wa ta'ala says 100 lashes when a man goes after a woman unjustly, and he says this woman, because she didn't want to marry him, all of a sudden he spreads through the neighborhood that she's a harlot, when in fact she's not that. And Subhanahu wa ta'ala has warned that, and it's a grave sin behind this. It puts you in jail and also give you 100 lashes. I think 80 lashes. I forgot what the Sharia says for a person who commits splendor against a chaste woman. See, so it goes both sides, and we also have a part here where they cannot disobey the Prophet and things that are right. Again, the bay'ah is same as far as the man. We're supposed to obey the imam of the country of things that are right and just, not in sin. Remember, I've had this class before where we talk about if suddenly you in some land and say the country is going through really hard times, and suddenly the imam of the country says, you know what, I want now to start to plant heroin and cocaine, start to make cocaine, and we sell it on the open market in order to bring the riches to the country. You're not to obey that. You're not to obey that. This is what we're talking about here. You are to obey what is good. We're not talking about something where you're mad because he now says he wants the stores to close up early. That's his right to say that. He said, I want the stores to close up early so you can make Salat to Maghrib and Isha, okay? So he orders that. You have to obey that. But if he turns around and says to you, look, I want you to keep these stores open and I want you to start to sell cocaine. I want you to start to sell different types of drugs and so on and so on. Now you disobey that if you can. If you have soldiers stand over a gun, you have no other choice. But you're to disobey that. So I hope that we have an understanding on that because it's important. And you got to remember something at the time too. The Arabs were living in a backward, time. There was a lot of stuff going. They were killing their girl children. When they were born, they found a girl and they buried them alive. There was a lot of stuff going on with them that was off the charts. And if you look at the Kaaba, they used to go when they made their pilgrimage. The woman was required; she had to go naked around there. This is all in Jahiliyyah, in backwardness, in ignorance. And the Prophet was a boy at the time when he started to see this. And of course, eventually they abolished that, to stop that, and give respect and honor to the woman where she's fully clothed. In those days, the woman was required, she had to, here you are, you're making your pilgrimage, and you have naked women walking around you. Stark naked women walking around you. This is how it was. This is the backwardness that was happening. So, we are to obey our ruler in things that are right according to the Quran and Sunnah, not because you're angry with him because he made you close up the store early. And you say, no, that's his right to order that. If he says he orders the people to close up early before Salat al-Maghrib and you go to the masjid, you must obey him. He's the imam of the country. He has that right under the Sharia to do this. But in sin, he cannot order you in sin. He can't now tell the stores to start operating in prostitution. You cannot do that. You don't follow that. Now, let me get back into another height, and then we will close here. Number 13. Again, this is Surah 60. O ye who believe, turn not for friendship to people whom is the wrath of Allah. Of the hereafter, they are already in despair, just as unbelievers are in despair about those buried in the graves. Now here, my brothers and sisters, is twofold. We have the hypocrites. The hypocrites, you are not to turn to friendship with them. Cannot. Because the hypocrites are under the wrath of Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. And you are not to turn into them because they are in despair. And in the hereafter, if you know there's many instances in the Quran, Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has been very, 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 very hard about the hypocrites. And he does not make the distinction between the hypocrite, the Muslim hypocrite, and the disbeliever. And he is quite poignant about that. And he tells you here, don't turn to these people for friendship because the wrath of Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is on them. You could have a problem. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about here so you can understand that. And I'll give you a verse in the Quran so that you can see the what Subhanahu wa Ta'ala in his wisdom, what he's talking about, how he feels about the hypocrites. You have people who now, you heard me talk about many times, they have decided to go to the disbelievers and their government and their agencies to go fight against the Muslims. That guy that you know who you used to break bread with, that guy used to invite over to the house, the guy used to go to aid, the celebration, the Muslim celebration, and so we used to go with him and his family. You cannot do it anymore because you know that he's working with these disbelievers against the Muslims. He's a hypocrite. And there's other things too. I won't have to get into that. We're not going to get into Sharia, of course, right now. But you are to stay away from him. This is what we talk about here. And subhanahu wa ta'ala said, okay, my brother here, Hashim said, inshallah, study the website, very powerful information about the Moors. I don't, my dear brother, we had me and Saeed did class on the Moor. I understand about the Moors very well. We did a class on this, Saeed and I. You can check my site and you can check Saeed, the Happy Companion, and we did quite a few things on the Moors. We talked about the Moors in great length. Let me see here. Yeah, okay. And also here, subhanahu wa ta'ala again wants the Muslims to be around other Muslims who will help you in your faith, not bring you to the fire. And this is what, when you do this, these people will draw you from your faith and bring you closer to the fire, because this is their destination unless they repent from it. If we go to Surah 9, the woman, okay, we go to Surah 9 here, table spread, okay, it's repentance. If we go to 60, we go to 62, boy, you know what, I can't now, you know what, I forgot the verse number for this. I thought it was 63, what was about the hypocrites. Or is it, boy, I tell you, boy. Okay, I'll give you one here. 73, this is Surah 9. Subhanahu wa ta'ala says, this is going to show you what he feels about the hypocrites while you stay away from them. O prophet, strive hard against the unbelievers and the hypocrites, and be firm against them. Their abode is hell, an evil refuge indeed. This is 73, verse 73 in Surah 9. This is the surah that subhanahu wa ta'ala was angry. And he explained a lot of things about these things and why what things we should do in a case like this. Verse 68, what I was talking about here, how subhanahu wa ta'ala regards the hypocrites as the same level as those who fight the Muslims, the disbelievers. He says, number 68, this is Surah 9, Allah hath promised the hypocrites, men and women, and the rejectors, the disbelievers of faith, the fire of hell. He lumped together the hypocrites and the disbelievers who fight the Muslims, who legislate against the Muslims, who make Islamic phobia, who do things against the Muslims, who order the Muslim woman to wear hijab, or orders her to take her clothes off when they go to the ocean or they go to swim, and they tell them to disrobe and so forth and so on, and they do things in the country against the Muslims. So he's labeled both of them together. He's saying that their destination is the fire. And again, in number 73, verse 73, Surah 9, he says again, the prophet, he orders, this is an order from subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, O prophet, strive hard against the unbelievers and hypocrites. Again, he's got them lumped together. And be firm against them. Their abode is hell, an evil refuge indeed. This is why, my brothers and sisters, he says in that last verse in Surah Al-Mumtahina, Surah 60, you stay away from these people. Don't go around them, because their abode is the hellfire, unless they repent from it. But you stay away from them, because it's important that you do this, my brother and sister, because you must to protect your religion. Now, it's no fault to you if you didn't know that I'm working, because I don't reveal it to you. You have no way of knowing what I do, and you see me leave in the morning, you don't know. You see me come back at night, you have no way of knowing. You don't know that I'm working for the disbelievers against the Muslims. You don't know. We're not talking about that. But if you know to come to know that you know and you see me with them, you hear that that I'm working with them, and you prove that I'm working with the disbelievers against the Muslims, then you stay away. You got to do that, my brothers and sisters. This is very important that you must do that. So, again, my brothers and sisters, I hope that you have got something out of this lesson today about our dear sisters who are refugees, and about what our Prophet wants and what Subhanahu wa Ta'ala wants from us. Because it's important, my brothers and sisters, that you become acquainted with this particular verse, especially those in the West. Why I say that is because in the West, they have a lot of things they try to use against us. They try to use verses against us and say that we're warmongers and we're against everybody and so forth. We have a right to do what we want and so forth. And I want to clear that up. So now you have the ammunition to help you to fight against this, because it's important that you do this. He will judge between you. There's something else too I wanted to kind of get into, and then I will close. Verse 2 of Surah 60 is important as well. He's giving you guidance because it's happened in history a lot. Subhanahu wa Ta'ala says here in verse 2, this is back to Surah 60 again, he says, if they get the better of you, they will be your enemies. Stretch forth their hands and tongues against you for evil. Their desire that you should reject faith. Now, what did the hypocrites do for the disbelievers who they work for? They try to bring you from iman to disbelief. They don't want to see you with prayer. They don't want to see you with faith, Islamic faith. So they work on you. They turn you into police. They do things to you in order to take you from that. They want to take you from iman, okay, and so forth and so on. And and you know, this is a sad epitaph, because we have a lot of this happening today. A lot of the strong Muslims today are fought for their faith. They're not doing nothing wrong except their faith. And we have the hypocrites and disbelievers who are the armies of the devil going after Muslims to bring them from iman and bring them to disbelief. And Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is giving you a warning here, about them. And again, like he says, if they get the better of you, they will be your enemies. Again, talking in the sense that, as we see today, the Tubab governments have most of them, a lot of them, okay, the main ones, the most powerful ones, have ungodly power over most Muslim states today. And they have gotten the better of the Muslim states. And they are the enemy to the Muslims. And they stretch forth their hands and tongues against you for evil. And we know this to be the case because when they come into the countries, they don't ask for the countries to bring them to the good, they bring in the bad. They bring things in to destroy the country even further. Subhanahu wa Ta'ala talks about that. They desire that you should reject the faith. When they go, they put pressure on the states of the Muslim states, and go put pressure in the United States and other, in the Tubab countries, and put pressure on the Muslims to take them from Iman. They don't fight the fire worshiper. They don't care about the man who worshiped the ant. They don't care about the man who worshiped the toilet. They don't care about the man who's a Buddhist, or he's an atheist, or he's worshiping the moon. He's a sun worshiper, or he's a moon worshiper. They don't care. Or he worshiped the cattle. He doesn't care about that. What he cares about is the Muslims. He's bent on taking them from the religion and making them into something else. Because the Muslims, in its wisdom and in its power, is efficient enough with Subhanahu wa Ta'ala behind them to unseat the disbelieving countries that we see today. And we've talked about this in other shows. There are 57 Muslim countries. Do you know that the resources that the Muslims had, they pull that together? And they bring their own currency? It will topple the Western governments. They know this. And they will topple the governments without a shot. That's the thing. They won't have to send troops in there. No. They will do it economically, and because they have Subhanahu wa Ta'ala behind them, they will have this one currency, and they will pool their resources, and they will be a powerful union, and this is going to happen again. Our brother said it's coming. Our prophet talked about that. It's going to come. And I'll leave you another fact, and then I will close here. Subhanahu wa ta'ala, in his wisdom and in his mercy, could take the same enemy that we're talking about now and make them into believers. We've saw this. We have a prime example of this, and I give you this, and I will close. Do you remember the battle of Yarmouk there in Syria, the famous battle of the Muslims? Now, the Muslims are now starting to they start to bring the Khalifa, and they had to remove the Romans, and they had to remove the Persians out. And so this famous battle took place with the Romans. The Romans came in with 200,000 strong, and the Muslims came between, they say, 20 to 30,000. And the Muslims defeated them. But in the course of this battle, you have battle-tested, hard-ridden a Roman general who called out one of our greatest warriors in Islam, Khalid ibn Walid. We know him as Saif Allah. Called him to the middle of the battlefield. And at this time, he asked Khalid many questions. He wanted to know that the sword that he carries, that he defeats the enemy, that he can't be defeated if Subhanahu wa ta'ala, because they were told that Subhanahu wa ta'ala dropped the sword from the heavens and gave it to him. That's why they can't defeat this man. And Khalid, radiallahu anhu, he said no, and he explained how he got this term, Saif Allah, from the Prophet ﷺ. This bitter enemy of Islam, this man who killed in the previous days in battle, came to Islam on the battlefield. That's right, my brothers and sisters. You see how Subhanahu wa ta'ala worked? So when he talks in this particular surah about that, he says, even the ones that you may fight today, you may be friends with them the next day if he so wills that. And we see this as one example here. It happens. How many we seen in prison? We've seen hardened brothers. And they don't have nothing to do with no religion. If you go talk to them about Islam, they'll start calling you names and everything else. Well, Subhanahu wa ta'ala calls them to the deen, to Islam. And they come out as Muslims. See, so just because the man that you fight, the hypocrite that you fight out here today, Subhanahu wa ta'ala may restore him. He just might restore him. And it's possible. You got to always keep that back in mind. But that's not for you. I mean, that's a qadar law. We can't. If that hypocrite is hurting you and your family, you got to fight him. You got to, because you don't know what Subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to do 3 days from now or whatever. You can't bank on that. You have no way of knowing this. So you must take care of your faith. So if the hypocrite comes around you and he's bent on taking you from Iman, you got to battle him. You have to. You got to guard yourself against him. So my brothers and sisters, I covered this, and I'm hoping that I helped you in this regard to talk about this beautiful surah and whatnot. And if my brother Saeed is still here, I'm not sure. He and I was talking here the other day, and we may have a program together. We'll see, inshallah ta'ala. And you stay tuned to that, and I'll let that out. This would be about Africa, inshallah. If we decide we can pull it off, this, our brother Saeed is a very, very busy man. He's got a lot of things on his plate. So we'll see, inshallah. Maybe perhaps this weekend we may do it. But if we do, stay tuned for that. And my brothers and sisters, be mindful of your deen and strengthen your relationship with Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Strengthen your knowledge in the Quran as well. Keep reading the Quran and get the tafsir of the Quran and learn the Quran. Because it's incumbent upon you, because you must fight the enemies of Islam when they come to you with stuff that's not right. When they come to you about the sisters and they say, I heard you can take a woman off the street in LA and you can bring her in the house and you can start to have sex with her and we can't touch you. You hear crazy, crazy things they say about Muslims, what they can do, especially to women. It's not right. But armed with the right information, with the Quranic information, you can talk to his brother and correct him and tell him, no, this is not true. We cannot just take a woman off the street, throw her in our house, and make her come to do something, and we can have sex with her. You cannot. Those are certain circumstances, only in time of war, in certain circumstances, if she is, because she's under your protection, and she, as you heard me say, she consents to this. Consent, not force, consent to it. So, arm yourselves, my brothers and sisters, so you can be ambassadors for the religion, and if you start to bring people to Islam, you have to have the knowledge, because one of them will ask you a question. You have to have a basis so you can answer that, because he may just come to Islam that day if you answer that question. If you answer that question for him, he said, okay, and he said, look, can I go to the masjid with you Friday? I want to do this. Or you did not answer the question, or you answered it wrong. That brother may turn back around and say, you know what, I don't want to come to Islam. It happens, my brothers and sisters. So just be mindful of that. And so I'll leave you with this. And my brothers and sisters, Surah 60 is very important for us to know, especially in modern times today, as you heard me say, because we have many refugee women are coming to the Americas, and they're going in Muslim strongholds and so forth. They're showing up at the masjids now, and so forth and so on. You have the right to examine them. We have this happening quite a bit now, so you have the right to examine them, to check their deen, their religion, how they feel, and so forth and so on. So with that said, my brothers and sisters, thank you for those who showed up and those who show up in the future. And I will leave you with the beautiful words of Jinnah. Assalamu alaikum. Rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.